The last word on the US elections. Live from New York City. Sponsored by Volvo. On Today FM.
Many of you have complained in recent months that we have been completely partial in our coverage of the American election, that we have been favourable towards Hillary Clinton and most unfavourable towards Donald Trump. So we have asked to join us, and I'm delighted that she has joined us in studio here in Manhattan, by Ann Coulter, who's the author of In Trump We Trust, which is one of 12 New York Times bestsellers she has written. She has been described by The Atlantic as one of the most influential political minds in the United States of America, but I think it's also fair to say that she is a controversial one who liberals regard as something of a she-devil. Ann Coulter, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. So you've been pro-Hillary and you wait until the voting has already started to give the other side.
Well, nobody back in Ireland can vote anyway, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
Really?
Tell us, why do you think Donald Trump is a suitable man to be president of the United States?
Because of his issues. He's thrown open political categories. It's not Democrats versus Republicans anymore. Both political parties. We've just been through first 8 years of George Bush, a Republican, then 8 years of President Obama, a Democrat. And apparently our ruling class has no intention of ever dealing with the border, of ever trying to bring manufacturing jobs back to America, of maybe not getting us involved in lots of pointless Middle Eastern wars. Bernie Sanders, this nut socialist from Vermont, nearly beat Hillary Clinton in the primary. Apparently, the public does not think either party is listening to them. And by the way, they're right. Both political parties say they're going to help the middle class, say they're going to help the working class, and then they get to office and say, what do you need, Wall Street? Here's a blank check. I think a little gratitude is in order, America. Well, Americans are saying, no, we want to overturn the political order. And the media is part of the ruling class. I haven't been able to listen to your radio show, but I can tell you that the media in this country has never been so bad. The unprecedented attacks on Trump have been unbelievable. The media and our governing institutions there are polls on this. There are polls going back 50 years, have never been held in as little respect.
Do I get the impression from what you're saying that you regard Trump almost as an independent candidate who just happens to be running under a Republican flag of convenience?
Well, not that I think it particularly matters at this point, but the Democrats gave up being a party of the people long ago. They long ago, literally probably about the time I was born, they were more the working class party, or at least that's my sense of it. It's been since George McGovern in 72 that they became more of a lifestyle party. They're the party of the ultra-rich, the hipsters, the yuppies. They're for abortion and gay marriage, and then the very, very poor. Their interest in coal miners, steel workers, small businessmen, that has been gone for 30 years. So I can't say that it's just, a roll of the dice which party Trump ran with. No, this is what Republicans, if there is hope at this point, it lies with the Republican Party, though I will say Trump's position on trade and immigration, identical to Bernie Sanders. And
yet you agree with that?
Yet I agree with it. I've been writing about it for 10 years.
Okay, tell me a little bit about your position on immigration.
Yet Bernie Sanders agrees with me.
Immigration. Okay, what's your problem with immigration? Because isn't the United States of America a country that has been founded upon and prospered because of immigration?
No. We get nothing but cliches in immigration. No, it's not an immigration country of immigrants. Diversity is not a strength. No, for 300 years, America was a country of, 80% British Isles, about 5% German, French, 10-15% very small sliver from West Africa. It was not only a biracial country, and only a biracial country, but the two races were from two very tiny slivers of the globe. It's not like we were bringing in even Scandinavians, Russians, Armenians. It was Teddy Kennedy's 1965 Immigration Act that apparently brought a gusher of cliches that have nothing to do with the truth about America, covered in one chapter of my last massive New York Times bestseller, Adios America. And that's when people started coming in, very different from any group of people we had taken in the past. More than 90% of the immigrants we've brought in since 1970 are from the third world, very backwards culture, non-English speaking. The vast majority immediately need government assistance.
Hold on, that's what used to be said about Irish immigrants. I mean, you say you take a selection of small immigrants.
Everyone is so solipsistic about immigration. You talk to a Jew and, what about the Jews? Can we talk about the country and everyone? We're trying to save a country here.
Save it from what?
Save it from not being a country. We are not the international lounge at JFK Airport. I mean, why don't you guys go Somalia? Why don't you become Japan? Can we at least vote on whether we should become a country that isn't the country we have been for several centuries? Are we allowed to have a vote on whether we should be not only bilingual, but multilingual? California has an initiative on the ballot today that you can have dominant language in the public schools be another language.
But what's to fear from change?
It's not, look, the idea, this fear, it isn't fear. It's not liking a government policy. It's not like this is something that's happening naturally, like we're King Canute trying to hold back the ocean. This was a specific government policy designed to help the Democratic Party. They have brought in 40 million new voters because these post-1970 immigrants, vast majority on welfare, they're voting 8-2 for the Democrats. The Democrats have no more right to bring in 40 million new voters than the Republicans do.
Hasn't Donald Trump used many of those as his workers and all his various business enterprises as a form of cheap labor?
No, that's a lie, but let's say it isn't. So what? Point two, who else benefits? The plutocrats. They get, it's a triple for them. They get cheap labor, and I got to tell you, that's been a problem since your fellow countrymen figured out they didn't have to be maids in New York and could move west. Oh, the servant problem for the rich in New York, it has been unspeakable, let me tell you. Well, now they have very tractable servants, much more tractable than black employees, for example. It doesn't make white people in New York feel uncomfortable, so they get really, really cheap nannies, maids, chauffeurs. Everybody in L.A. has a pool boy, even if they don't have a pool. They have a pool boy. They're so cheap. Why not? Cutting their hedges. Plus, they get to strut around like they're Martin Luther King and act like they're virtuous while driving down the wages of Juanita the maid. And third, they have this voting force to ensure a permanent Democratic majority.
Did you say on Twitter today that the vote should be restricted to people who have 4 grandparents who were born in the United States?
Why, no, I did not.
Okay.
Now you have some idea of what poor Donald Trump has been up against, and I have my entire career, Trump, since he ran on positions defending the American people against the ruling class. Just one lie after another.
Okay, so what did you say about voting?
I said if only people who had 4 grandparents born in America voted, Donald Trump would win in a landslide. Is that hate speech now?
Donald Trump, of course, wouldn't be allowed to vote himself.
Well, isn't that an interesting fact, but has nothing to do with what I said? Does it?
It's still, though, why would you restrict the voting rights?
I didn't suggest we do. I was making a comment, and I might add that every single, good grief, go on 538, go on the New York Times. All we talk about is the Hispanic vote, the women's vote, the college-educated vote, the black vote. I merely comment on what traditional America, what that vote would look like, and you try to characterize it as hate speech.
Okay, tell me a little bit how the wall with Mexico and the United States of America would work. How practical is it? Can that really be built, or is this just rhetoric?
No, you're right, walls. That's a really modern technology. They've been around since 1,000 years before Christ. This just so shows you how disingenuous people are. For Pete's sake, Donald Trump builds buildings where half a mile in the air you can flush the toilet and order a creme brulee. I think he can handle a wall.
Do you really think it would be built? And you don't think that there would be ways for the Mexicans to get under it, get over it, get through it?
Do you really think the sun will rise tomorrow? Yeah, of course a wall will be built. It works quite well, the wall around Israel, the wall around the White House. This is the most insane argument. It's like saying wheels don't work. They can spring a leak. Don't bother using a wheel. Buckets don't work.
And the Mexicans will pay for it?
That's just to taunt the media, but it would be, the idea that this is some insuperable burden. We give them billions of dollars in foreign aid. We could take it out of that. It would be very easy, but nobody cares. It's a deal at any price.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about the character of Donald Trump. Do you think that, given what we have seen of his behaviour in recent times...
Most of those are lies.
Can I just come to you, particularly his relationship or his behaviour towards women?
His
As a
behavior
woman,
toward
do you not
women is
find that
lovely.
offensive?
He's an absolute gentleman. Everyone who knows him knows that. This is just the non-stop slander against Donald Trump.
How well do you know him?
I know him better than the women claiming he's groped them 3 weeks before an election.
So you don't believe those women? And
Nobody
what they say?
does. Nobody does. Not the networks putting them on believe them. The New York Times has been all over Donald Trump's life. They had a major report back in May. They had their best reporters on it. They spent months talking to every woman who's worked with Donald Trump. And the worst thing they could get was, back when he was in high school, he made a point. He really liked to be seen with pretty girls. That was the worst they had. And suddenly, 3 weeks before an election, people who have... And the media, by the way, hasn't bothered asking, what flight was that on that you claim he started feeling you up? Could you tell us where it was going? Was there anyone else on the flight with you? Can you give us what seat you were sitting in? No. The media, oh, you say you were groped by Donald Trump? No, this is the ruling class.
And what about the
trying
video
to
with
shut
Billy
down.
Bush?
This is the ruling class trying to shut down someone who will finally do something for ordinary Americans who have been completely left behind, ignored, and haven't voted for 20 years, which is why there still is a chance.
But what makes you think that he really is interested in that class of people that you're talking about, that this isn't just a vehicle for his narcissism, because he is from the elite himself?
Yeah, that's a good plan. Take positions that will get you slandered viciously nonstop for 16 months straight, destroy your business, cost you hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe he's just doing this for fun.
It might get him to the White House. It's the strategy that possibly... Do you think, is he going to be elected today as President of the United States?
I don't know. We'll see.
Are you hopeful?
What do you think? I just wrote a book in Trump We Trust.
Yeah, you would,
awesome.
but are you still hopeful that enough people will agree with you and cast the votes?
I don't think anybody knows, yeah. Look, the only question today is Democrats have not been winning the argument. They have not been formulating clever points that are, really appealing to the American people. No, they looked around the country and realized we can't get Americans to vote for us. Let's bring in ringers. So the only question today is, have they already destroyed the country? Have they brought in enough foreigners to outvote Americans that Americans can't ever win again?
A final point with you, Ann Coulter. I said at the outset that you're regarded as a somewhat divisive figure in the United States, that your position... Do you ever worry that perhaps by taking such an extreme position that you are cheapening perhaps political discourse and that you're actually inflaming division in this country?
For one thing, the definition of controversial is... disagrees with the media.
Well, you are part of the media.
And what you're calling these extreme positions, we'll find out tonight, but are believed by at least half of the American people, or pretty damn close to it. So, I think that's really more of a problem, that your side wants to write off half of the public and call us deplorables, irredeemable, divisive. You shouldn't be saying these things. That's a little appalling.
Ann Coulter, thank you very much for joining us. Ann is the author of In Trump We Trust.